The next slide, I'm talking about onions. I don't know about you, but I don't cook anything that doesn't start with garlic and onions. And there's two types, and they're grouped into two main varieties, and it's mainly by taste. We have our American onions, which are smaller, denser, stronger, and they store for a longer period of time. And then there's a European, which is variety that's a milder. Next slide, please. If you choose to grow onions, which I've not ever been successful at, it requires a light, sunny area, well-drained loam kind of soil, a medium, rich, fertile soil, and a pH of 5.5 to about 7. It's considered one of the cooler vegetables, but it likes to have it cool when it's starting out, and then it likes to get warmer as it develops. It does not like to be waterlogged. I think that's why I never had much luck with it. Because when we get a gully washer, you know, it just kind of just sits out there. So next slide, please. So if you want to grow some, and it's best for early in the spring, you set them at 1 to 2 inches apart and 1 to 2 inches in a row. And then when they're you thin them to be about 4 inches apart, but don't throw away the green stuff. You can still eat the green stuff of the thinned plants. I don't know about you, but whenever I thin something, I feel like I'm killing it. And it's like, oh, what a waste. I'm going to go plant it somewhere else. But with onions, you can still eat the top portion if you show desire. And once again, you know, you want to have, when they start to develop and to get bulby, you want to make sure that they have enough water, but not too much. Next slide, please. Here again, harvesting. Now, when do you pick this onion? I never knew it. This is something I learned just yesterday. If you can see in this photo, you can see that they are harvested when they're about 2/3 of the tops have fallen over. That's when they're ready to go. That's the sign. Now you can leave the tops on or cut them off, but you're supposed to leave about 1 inch of the top when you store them. Those are pretty good looking onions. Back one, there we go. Now here you can see all these onions are kind of in a big, big lump. The idea behind that is to let them dry a little bit. And they will actually last for 6 to 7 months. So that's one reason why the ones in my drawer are still good. Can we have the next slide? Now we're going to talk about leeks a little bit. Next slide. I don't know about you, but I think leeks are extremely expensive. When I go to the store, they're very expensive. And I thought, and when you wash them, you always see this dirt. You have to wash that dirt out of them. Really, it gets right down there close to the root system. And some interesting things I found out about it is they are one of those frost hardy vegetables like Toshiko was talking about earlier. You plant them 6 inches deep and 6 inches apart, which is, to me, that was kind of interesting because they're so deep. It's about 70 to 120 days for maturity. Mulching is recommended. You want to, when you plant them, they will compete, the weeds will compete with the root system. So you want to really make sure that you keep your weeds out of there and don't dig too deep, otherwise you damage your root structure. Next slide, please. Now, one thing I never knew about, once again, I'm organizing my ignorance, is I didn't know what blanching was. And if you look at a leek, if the white portion is considered to be the most flavorful, and how to produce more of that white portion in your leek is what they call blanching. And I got some pictures of it just so you can see. So next slide. What they do, there's a couple ways of doing it, and everybody has their own. So you can, as the leek is developing, you wrap it well, you can use cardboard, wrapping paper, whatever, with twine. Protect it from actually the photosynthesis part, I believe. And it actually produces more of the white portion. That way you get more leek for your buck, so to speak. Another way to do it is to have your, if you have a real dry soil, not a clay kind, you can gradually 1 or 2 inches every week or so start burying the top of it, but you have to be careful because you can end up with a fungus or, you know, that moisture related diseases. So that's another way to get more white in your leek. I think I'm next slide. And this is some of my resources that I used. I just trying to pick out some interesting little tidbits, knowledge. And if there's any